In a lot of these videos, I talk about all these things and how to make your business work, but let's talk about a mishire.
How'd you do that?
I see that success is not something you pursue, it is something you are.
So far in all these videos, I talk about here's how you do things that work, here's how you build your speaking business, here's how you become the authority, but very rarely do I talk about mistakes. And I don't talk about mistakes because I'm freaking perfect. But really, I thought I would talk about mishires because eventually you're going to have to hire someone. It doesn't matter where you are right now in your business. Eventually you're going to have to hire somebody, and you got to learn quickly on how to identify a mishire. So when you hire someone, it doesn't work out, you got to get rid of them fast. So here's how you identify it. I remember when I put up an ad for joining the event team in order to book more events and to walk them through the process on how to get me on stages and everything. So I put out this ad, and several people replied, and basically this one lady, I won't use her name, let's call her Sarah. So this one lady, Sarah, she responded, and at first, she sounded great. So I was like, okay, let's talk. And so we did like a little phone interview, and on the phone, she sounded pretty good. And on the phone, she basically said, like, oh, no, I said, okay, when can you start? And she goes, oh, well, I can start next week. I said, next week? Why next week? And so she said, well, I got family in town, so I got to be with them. Now, as soon as she said, oh, I got to take off an entire week, I immediately knew, like, okay, this isn't going to work. And the reason for that is just a simple mishire criteria that you could go by. But basically, I immediately knew it wasn't going to work. But what I did instead is I wanted to record the conversation because I was going to put it inside a platform, the monthly Speaking Lifestyle membership section. And so that's what I did. I said, okay, well, let's test it out. We'll see you next week. And immediately, literally within a day, it was literally that day, that phone call that we had where I was going to set her up with all this stuff. That day I said, you know what, forget it, this isn't going to work. And let me tell you why. The number one reason is because of excuses. The way you know that you have a mishire is because a person makes excuses. They make excuses about everything. Oh, I got to wait a week because family's coming into town. Oh, I can't do this because my leg hurts. And but yeah, I'd have to wait a little bit. So they make all kinds of excuses. I absolutely hate excuses. Absolutely hate them. So the second someone makes an excuse, they can almost guarantee that I'm gonna let them go. So that's the first thing to determine if you made a mishire. And actually, before that, one of the things that you really need to pay attention to in just hiring, this isn't really part of mishire, is to really just see if they did the homework on you. Because most people, they won't even do the homework. So you'll send them your website, and they won't even look at your website. They won't watch your videos, nothing. They'll be like, oh, well, do you have video footage? I've actually gotten that several times where I would send a link to the person, but before we talk on the phone, and they would say like, oh yeah, I'm really interested in this. I'm ready to get going. I've been in sales for a while. Do you have like video footage or something of you on stage? Pimp slap time. At that moment, I immediately, if someone does that, at that moment you stop the conversation. You say, you know what, this isn't going to work. And you get rid of them instantly, because if they're not willing to do the homework on you, they're not going to do the homework on clients in order to actually get you booked. Well, another indicator of a mishire is they ask dumb questions. And I know people say there's no such thing as dumb questions, but there really are dumb questions. And this lady, Sarah, she actually asked a dumb question. She said, well, what do I do if there's no contact information on the website? And I said, to be honest, I've never, ever seen a business, a real business, with no contact information, not an email, nothing on their website. And even then, what can you do? So to me, questions like that are really dumb. And when someone asks a dumb question, that simply means they're not thinking for themselves. And you need people who think for themselves. Because if they're not thinking for themselves, they're going to keep coming to you. And that's what you don't want. You don't want someone who is completely dependent on you. Someone who says, oh, how do I send out a tweet? Do you want me to do this? Do you want me to do that? Because the whole point of you hiring someone is so you don't have to do that. It's so you can actually get more time and use your time on other things. So someone who doesn't think for themselves, what they usually do is they ask dumb questions. And also in indicators, they simply do the minimum amount of work. So let's say you tell them, oh, I need 50 leads. I need you to get 50 leads by the end of today. And they only get 50. They literally stop at 50. That is a huge indicator that this is probably a mishire. Someone that you really want is someone where you say, oh, 50, and they come up with 75 or 100. Now you're like, damn, all right, cool. This person's going to work. But people who do the minimum amount of work, they're not intrinsically motivated. So those are the people who are going to be mishires. And then also people who don't make their numbers. So if you say, I need X amount of leads or X amount of gigs per month or whatever, and if they don't make those numbers, it is a mishire. So what do you do if it's a mishire? You get rid of them fast. Just like how I said, if someone doesn't do homework on me, where I send them a link to my website and they ask me a dumb question like, hey, do you have video footage? That immediately tells me they didn't look at my website, or they have no idea what I do. So as soon as you realize that you have a mishire, as soon as your gut feeling says, I don't think this is going to work, get rid of them fast. But I do want to point this out. You have to ask yourself, is it their fault or is it your fault? More often than not, it is your fault. And number one, it's your fault because you need to get better at hiring. And this is a skill in general. This is why I just recommend you just practice it now. Even if you can't afford to hire people, just say that you'll do it with commission and you'll give them 25% commission of the gig. But more often than not, it is your fault. And I've seen several speakers who want to hire somebody and they say, okay, you're hired, book me gigs. And the person's like, well, how? You're like, I don't know, that's what I hired you for. What? So if you're going to hire somebody, you need to give them the systems that are going to book you gigs. You need to know how to get booked, how to book you. You need to know how to find the events, what to say, the emails that are all set up, everything in the CRM that's set up. You got to know this stuff. And then when you hire someone, you just say, here's all the stuff, and you train them on how to do it. On the other hand, if you do what most speakers do, where they say, you're hired, go find events, and the person's like, well, I don't know what to do, then you can guarantee that they will fail because you failed as a leader. So if you're going to hire somebody, make sure you do it right. But when you do it right, you will eventually have a mishire and you need to get rid of them fast.